One of the big career moves that people make is to become a manager or the desire to become a manager, but don't get lulled into being put in as a fake manager. A fake manager is nothing more than an employee with with being called a manager, and that's going nowhere.
Good afternoon. We're here today. I'm talking about fake managers. And it sounds like an interesting subject, but one of the things I've discovered when I go out and I talk to people is that they're in a manager job. So, first of all, let me explain what a manager is. You have a person that you report to. That's your manager. Um, I'm not sure how the IRS defines manager. I'm pretty sure that they define a manager as a person who can hire and fire people. Do they have that ability? Hire and fire. Right? Um, the purpose of putting somebody as a manager is to get them off of hourly wage and go to salary. If you can put somebody in a salary wage, you can work them 100 hours a week. And that person is works 100 hours a week. But the question is, if you're paying somebody $2,000 a month, let's just pick 1,500. I'm going to make it, and you make them a manager. And if this is happening, if you make them a manager, let's go $1,500 a month. Let me clear that. Share screen. Let me go over here. Okay, let me garbage can that stuff. Okay, so if you're making $1,500 a month as a manager, well, let's even put it this way. 17, let's say you're making minimum wage. Let's go the other direction. $7.50. If you're a manager, you still have to make a minimum of $7.50 an hour, which is minimum wage. This is IRS. You can double check me, and it's been a while, but this is what I recall. Times 40 hours a week, times, well, it doesn't matter, 15,000, $7.50 an hour. I'm gonna give you a quick and dirty here. $7.50 an hour times 2 times 2 times 1,000 is $15,000 per year. Okay, I got cut off there for a little bit, so we're going to restart at the point. And I think where I was I was on the calculator and coming up with that a manager at $7.50 an hour makes $15,000 a year, right? So let me go back here and double check. $15,000 a year, right? Divided by 12. Go back and share screen. Divided by $15,000 a year, $7.50 an hour times 2 times 1,000, $15,000 per year, divided by 12 equals $1,250 per month. So they work a 40-hour week. So if they work a 40-hour week, they're going to make that $1,250 a month. That averages $7.50 an hour. Okay. So here's the rub. And I was a little erroneous when I said IRS. there's the Texas Workforce Commission, TWC, it oversees working here in the state of Texas. You're going to have to check your own, but they have what we call statuses, different types of statuses. Let me see if I can go and share screen right here. So if you go to texas.gov, this is called the duties test, right? And so what ends up happening is it's set for special tasks. So examples of occupations typically encountered with exempt categories. Exempt means that you don't have to pay hourly. And so you're an executive of a company, major head, head of a division, enterprise general manager with hiring and firing authority, department heads who have hiring and firing authority, or you're an administrative, vice president of organizations, personal director, right, head dispatcher, professional. So if you're a physician, attorney, architect, it's pretty, registered nurses, pharmacists, dentists, you all can be what they call exempt. So they pay you a salary. But typically what you're going to end up doing is, even if you are exempt, you're supposed to get at least minimum wage. So some of the things that these companies try to do is they try to change things up and say, you know what, I'm going to pay you $2,000 a month, right? But you're going to work 80 hours per 70, let's say 60 hours per week, right? Per week times 4 weeks, or times, well, that's 52 divided by 12. 52 weeks in a year divided by 12. Let's clear that. So if you're making 2,000 a week, or 2,000, 60 hour, hold on. If you're making $2,000 per month times 12, well, that's, so you're going to times 12 equals, say, $24,000 a year, divided by, let's just say 50 for ease. That gives you $480 a week, divided by 60 hours, gives you $8 an hour that you're averaging. So you're averaging $8 an hour. Equals $8 per hour. So you're above, which is greater than $7.50 an hour, right? So therefore, they haven't done anything wrong, right? So let's say instead of working 60 hours, you work 65 hours, right? So let's go back. Screen share. 65, we are. So instead of that, let's say we've got $2,000, $2,000 a month, divided by what is it? 50 or 24, sorry. Let's clear that. 24,000 divided by 50, right? Divided by, instead of working 60 hours a week, now you're working 65 hours a week. That puts you at 65 hours per week. That puts you at, whoops, go back to here, top sharing, $7.38 per hour. So now you're under minimum wage. They required, I believe, to pay you $7.50 an hour at least. So what they're trying to do is put you into a managerial position where they can get you down to minimum wage by working you hard. Might want to double check that, but there are certain criteria to be exempt. And if you're just say a person that's working at some facility, and they calling you a manager. So one time I went into CVS, and I was talking to the cashier, right? I don't know whether this person was paid salary or hourly. Don't know. But he said he was a manager. So he said he was a manager, and that part of his managerial duties was that he was called in if somebody missed a shift, he had to come in and pick up the shift for them. People called in sick, he had to come in and pick up for them. So he was getting all sorts of these hours, but they could have put him on exempt status saying that he's a manager and pay him, $2,000 a month. Well, he thinks he's, I'm making $2,000 a month. If you divide that out by 40, he's making $12 an hour. But if you really divide it out by the number of hours he's working, say he's working 80 hours a week, then he's maybe only making an equivalent of $5 or $6 an hour. But they're doing that with the promise that you're going to be going somewhere. You're moving up in the company. So sometimes, and if that person isn't really pulling managerial duties, there's certain criteria that he has to have hiring. And well, if he's not a professional, then he is not exempt for that. If he's not an administrative, maybe he's not exempt for that. So maybe he's an exec. I don't know. Maybe that would consider him executive. He has to have hiring and firing capabilities. And if he's not doing that, then he doesn't qualify for exempt. And so if that person works for a period of time, he should be compensated for the amount of time lost, that up to minimum wage, right? But many people are afraid to say anything. They're kind of dangled the carrot that you're a manager now. I mean, they make people manager over of carrots, or manager over aisle number 5, or manager over this. That doesn't mean they're a manager. And if they're putting them on as an exempt, an hourly, just because now that, or not hourly, because they're on a salary, that's a big deal. I'm a salaried employee. That's false. So don't get lulled into the idea that you're a manager. Manager has certain specific duties that they are to put you in. And so it's up to you to figure out what's right for you. But I just wanted to at least talk about what I call fake fake managers. So don't fall into being a fake manager. The other thing that I've seen, and this is more in the professional realm of things, I just see people who are in management. I want to get into management in this corporation. Corporations have that pyramid structure where you start at the bottom and you work your way up and you work your way up, and somebody's going to die, retire, or get fired for you to move into their position. Many times you have to really know how to network and get somebody who really likes you to put you in a position. I've seen that. I've seen people put in positions just because they're liked by people, not by the quality of the work they do. And I've even had managers that he didn't go anywhere. They put him into a position where he was in charge. He was still a senior manager, but he had nobody in his organization. And I remember one time he said to me, I was sitting and I worked for him. This was at MCI. He had This was like 20, 30 years ago now. He hired me. I came in, me and him and one other person were in the group. He was the nicest guy I ever met. He was good to me, nice to me. But when I was sitting in the cube, someone says, "Oh, you work for so and so." He says, "He's the biggest," and they didn't say jerk. They said something else. "He's the biggest hole that you could have ever," and he's a jerk. Don't like him. I don't know how you could work for him. And I mean, I never say anything. I'm just taking in information. And one day I was sitting in his office, and he said, "You know what? What I used to be the biggest a-hole." And he says, and one day I said, "What am I doing this for? Why am I going through all this trouble with my health and doing that, trying to move?" And he says, and after that, I just kind of settled in and I said, "You know what? I'm just going to be a nice guy." I had never seen him be an a-hole, but people said he was. So you get a reputation. He says, "I don't know who I have offended or screwed," but he said, "If this is one piece of advice for you, treat everybody above you the same as you treat everybody below you, because you may hire somebody at some point and you may go looking for a position within a company, and all of a sudden that person you hired 10 years ago is the hiring manager that you're interviewing with. And if you treated them wrong, guess what? You're not going to work for that person." So that was his piece of advice to me. But I also see where you have managers that, they just pushing paper around, and you got to figure out how much money do they really make? Is it worth something? Is it something that you really want to do? Because I think a lot of these managers nowadays are just what I would call professional emailers. And you got to be very careful not to fall in the trap that where are you going? And you can go hide in an office and you can make a little bit of money, but when times get bad, you're out of there. So anyway, that was a little more, but if you're talking about, don't fall in the trap of falling for a job to be a fake manager. Okay. So have a great day.